Welcome back, everybody. This is going to be our MRS21 Fall 2020 Test Number 2 review, Part 1. Hopefully this will be helpful to you guys. Again, you know, we'll have questions that will be similar to this, not exactly, and so we won't be able to show the work as we normally would. All right, so take a look at number 1. It says here f of x equals 5x squared and g of x equals square root 2x. What is the value f of g of 8? So when we see f of g of 8, it really means in this case that we're plugging 8 into g first. So we have g of 8, and so g of 8 just means the square root of 2 times 8, or the square root of 16, which is equal to 4. Now, once we find g of 8, that result will be plugged into the function f. So now we'll take f of this value of 4, of which in this case, since f of x is 5x squared, we'll have 5 times 4 squared, which is 5 times 16 because we square the 4 first and then multiply. And 5 times 16 is going to be 80. So that's our answer. Number 2 is very similar. Here, again, we have f of g of 4, but this time around we have different values for functions. If f of x equals 2 to the x power minus 1, and g of x equals x squared minus 1, we'll have first 4 goes into g, so we have now g of 4. That's 4 squared minus 1, which is 16 minus 1, or 15. And now we will plug this 15 into f, and so f of x is 2 to the x power. So again, f of 15 becomes 2 to the 15th power minus 1. Now we'll use a calculator to find 2 to the 15th power. And so here, 2 to the 15th power will just be, in this case, we'll just go calculate this here with a calculator. 2 raised to the 15th is going to be 32,768. But then we have to remember minus 1, okay? Which means our final result will be 32,767. And that's the answer for number 2. So for composite functions, when we see FOG of whatever number, we move from right to left, right? Plugging the number into G first, and the rightmost function, and then that result will become plugged into the leftmost function. If we're using X, it's the same thing. We'll do a G of X, and with that G of X will be plugged into X for our F function. So okay. Number 3. What is the inverse of x plus 2y plus 3 equals 0? Well, one of the things we talked about finding the inverse is we're going to first switch our x and y's. So I'll put down switch x and y. And so we're not switching numbers, just the letters. So we're going to get y plus 2x plus 3 equals 0. Everything else stays the same, we're just switching x and y. Our next step is to solve for y. Meaning, let's get y by itself. Everything that doesn't have a y is moved over to the other side. So we're going to subtract 2x from both sides, as well as subtracting 3, because we'll give it a positive 3. And we're left with y is equal to negative 2x minus 3. Now, as far as notation goes, we want to show it's the inverse, so we're going to end up with the following. Y to negative 1, which is the inverse of y, is equal to negative 2x minus 3. And that's the notation I'm looking for, okay? And of course, if it says f of x, we use f negative 1 of x. Although first we see f of x equals some type of function, we change f of x to y, then switch x and y, and then solve for y, and then replace that y with the f to negative 1 of x. All right, now for number 4. What is domain? So f of x was 1 over the square root of 2x minus 4. What is domain of f of x? And in this situation, there's a couple of things we have to consider. Since we're only using real numbers, we kind of consider the radical here, the square root in this case, that the square root of 2x minus 4 has to be positive. It has to be greater than or equal to 0. So we take the radicand, the item underneath the radical, and we set that to 2x minus 4 to be greater than or equal to 0. Except there's a problem. Our problem is that because this square root is underneath is a denominator, we cannot have it equal to 0. Okay, remember. You know what? Maybe let's type it out. Much easier this way. Okay, so here we go. I'll probably use a smaller font. Here we go. The denominator of a fraction, and caps here, cannot equal to 0. All right, so very important idea. Denominator fraction cannot equal to 0. So instead, in this case, instead of setting our radicand, our 2x minus 4, to be greater than or equal to 0, we're just going to let it be plain old 2x minus 4 is greater than 0. So positive. Now we solve an inequality the same way as an equation. The only difference would be in this case, if we multiply or divide both sides of the inequality by a negative number, we change the direction of the inequality. But we don't have that here though. So we're going to add 4. Adding 4 doesn't change anything. So we have here add 4. We have 2x is going to be greater than 4. And then we divide both sides by positive 2, which does not change direction of inequality. So x is going to be greater than 2. So that's our domain. Our domain in this case, x is greater than 2, not equal to 2. And that's question number 4. Now for number 5. X varies directly with the square root of y. Now this is a little tricky. When we see varies directly, we see in this case we're going to have a proportion, which really is saying two ratios equal to each other. The first item we have is x, so that belongs in the numerator. Varies directly with the square root of y. Now, not y, but the square root of y. And so we would have in this case this here, x over the square root of y. Now it's important for us to use this form for each of our ratios. So you're saying, what do you mean? Well, when x equals 3, so that belongs in the numerator because that's going to be x. Then y equals 16. Now, so 16, except it's not x varies with y, it varies with the square root of y. So we would have 3 over the square root of 16. Okay? Now we want to find y when x equals 15. So again, in the numerator, we have, because x is a numerator, we have 15. And we want to find the value of y. But remember, it's the square root of y. Right? We take the square root of the y value. So now, probably better off simplifying this fraction here. So this fraction now becomes 3 over 4 is equal to 15 over the square root of y. Now we'll just cross multiply here. 3 times square root of y equals 4 times 15. This gives us the equation here. 3 square root of y equals 60, because 4 times 15 is 60. We're going to divide both sides by 3 to get the square root of y by itself. Always isolate the radical by itself. Now to undo, or to kind of like the inverse of a square root, is to raise both sides second power. So we're going to square both sides. Remember, square root means the radical symbol. Square means to raise to the power of 2. So we're going to square both sides. And so now the square root of y squared will be y, which we're looking for. And now 20 times 20 is going to be 400. And there you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so this is where I'll stop part one. We will get to question number 6 in our next part. So just good idea to review these questions, because know that you won't have all these questions for your exam, but definitely a good representation of them will be there. And just prepare yourselves, because the methodology of approaching these questions will be very similar to your exam. Okay, thanks so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you found this helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Turn notifications on to know when new videos are added. All right, and please leave questions or comments in the comment section below. It really helps. If there's any mistakes someone made, or anything you would like to be see done, or anything you want to do, to just kind of say in this case, please let us know. All right, we'd love to hear from you. All right, so thanks so much for everything, and until next time, take care and be safe.